Hey Axis and Allies players, the good captain here. Welcome to a review of Russia's round 7 and Germany's round 7 here in this game of Axis and Allies 1914 against a human opponent. Out-of-box rules, no bid. And this is a whopper. This is a whopper. So let me review the Russian turn and discuss briefly what is going to happen here. Russia buys 4 infantry and saves none. This is exactly what I would have, nothing, no surprise there. The infantry in Tatarstan moves to Sevastopol and takes that territory, which is what I wanted to have happen in preparation for priming the revolution with Germany. A new blocker comes out to Tatarstan. So far, so good. He displaces 1 infantry out of Karelia into Moscow. Again, everything makes sense. There's no combat. Okay, let me re-emphasize this. There's no combat. And that's it. He placed the 4 infantry, and then so I'm thinking this is an error, but then my opponent posts this message. Just to make sure, the Russian Revolution takes into effect when 3 territories adjacent to Moscow are Central Powers controlled, so not contested, which is correct, and at least 1 more Russian territory is contested or controlled, right? I'm not sure about that 1 other territory being contested. I think it must be controlled. Otherwise, oh yeah, and then of course the CP have to agree to it. Yeah, right. So the CP never has to accept a revolution. They can decline the revolution. But if they do, there's no option for revolution in the future. You get this offer 1 time. And so I confirmed it, and just imagine my jaw, the sound of my jaw hitting the floor when, okay, this is not something I planned for him to offer armistice. This is shocking to me because I think this is going to be my 12th or 13th completed game, and I'm getting a firmer and firmer grasp on the Russian Revolution rules and all the nuances associated with it. But this is new. And what's new about this is that the Russian army never fought, except for, I think, a turn 2 blocker clearance attempt that failed in Romania, and I think a turn 4 blocker clearance attempt that it succeeded in Ukraine. There's been no attacks, so this is a this is a large army that has not fought, has not inflicted casualties, meaningful casualties on the enemy, and his position apparently was, and this is what I kind of love, hate, but mostly love about this rule, is it's sort of a negotiation between both opponents. This optional rule creates this sort of back and forth, and his response here apparently was to give up all the Russian army in exchange for there's so many facets to this, in exchange for burning down all these IPCs back here. So he's going to burn down 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, yeah, 13 IPCs. And in this context, taking Sevastopol as the Russian player doesn't make any sense to me, or never did until now, because it allows the British a route into the CP backdoor and into this economic backlands. So, it makes it tough sometimes to decide whether to accept the armistice or not based on who controls Sevastopol. Okay, so the Russians take Sevastopol, and in this context, it actually makes sense. I mean, if you're going to leave the CP armies alone on the East Front, you don't want these massive blobs of men and material, essentially squashing the India capital. So this move makes sense in context, but I still think this is, at least I hope it is. Is this a blunder? It should be. This should be a massive game-ending blunder. I'm going to rotate these armies, pivot them back, send them west, And I think I can prove it's a blunder just by raw data, which I'll do in a second, basically analyzing the TUV. So yeah, I mean, I think I'd be a fool not to accept this. So let's just put a pin here. So the current total unit value on the board is just we're going to focus on the Entente 1160, right? Okay, so they've got a lead over me with the material on the board. But when we accept the revolution, here's what happens. Every Russian unit inside originally Russian controlled territories essentially go away. I know the rules say you're supposed to leave a single piece to remind yourself that Russia still controls that territory or whatever, but for effectively game purposes, for effective game purposes, it's just gone. They're all gone, and this includes naval units. So these two cruisers down here, are going to be removed as well. So there are no more Russians on the board, and the next thing we're going to do is change the production units of Russian so that there's no more money for the Russians. Oh yeah, the next thing we got to do is change political relationship. This is one neat thing about AAA. Russia goes neutral, hard neutral with everyone, so it cannot be attacked, cannot be invaded by the Allies or the Central Power, or the Entente, or the Central Powers alike. So that's what we're doing here. And I think the last thing we're going to do is remove, we don't need to worry about that, is remove the minefields. Because when territories that were once Russian become revolutionized, this is in the FAQ, the minefields are inactivated. So there are no more minefields. This adds an interesting point here about Finland. Finland is now essentially an island, not protected by minefield, and so is highly exposed or ripe for British takeover. They have more transports than I do. They have access to more transports and an easier time of getting material up there. I mean, Germany's basically forced to build ground units all turn anyway, or all game anyway. So this is well, we have a plan for this moving forward here right now. But okay, now that we've removed all the Russian units, removed all the Russian income, and neutralized the Russian IPCs, let's take a look. So the Allied powers still control 115 to the CP 94, so we're still a little bit down as the CP in terms of economy. But look at this TUV. We're down to 880, and let's go back to our little chart. Look at that. Okay, that is massive. I'm now ahead, the CP is now ahead of the Entente by over 100 IPCs. Okay, and then this is the dirty little secret about playing as the Central Powers. If you're keeping track of the total unit value, one thing you can almost, in my opinion, discount is naval assets, or the value of naval assets. This is something I learned in Axis and Allies Classic, but it gets confusing when you play Global 1940 because there's convoy centers and ports that extend the range of boats and islands worth very valuable islands and national objectives, etc., etc. But in this game, much like Classic, but especially in this game, the ocean is really just a means to an end. It's a highway. And so what I mean to say is if you subtract out the value of all these naval units, both for this that are on the Central Powers and on the side of the Entente, this number is going to fall even further out of proportion. Most, almost not all, but very high percentage of this 987 for the Central Powers is wrapped up in land units, where a far more substantial number for the Entente is wrapped up in naval units, which cannot affect other than transports and again the superhighway of material flowing in from outside. Otherwise, there's no real direct effect on the territories via the navies. No, no national objectives, no real islands, no convoy centers. So, I mean, this to me again seems like a massive blunder. So now that we've primed, uh, we've got this is revolution accepted essentially. Yeah, okay. I don't see where he has any tempo. Um, I don't know. I mean, I've never played anything like this, so I don't know I can't say for sure what's going to happen, but the numbers look funky. So anyway, it's all wrapped up now, so the game is on. Uh, so yeah, Germany's purchases, and I already know what I'm going to do here, so let's get through this. I had decided to go 1 artillery, 2 armor, and 9 infantry. I debated doing this, but this is just, I don't know. There's not enough. There's going to be a bloodletting out on the west front eventually, and we don't want to have too many artillery and just go out of proportion compared to infantry and armor. So I'd rather be just slightly too many infantries at the end of the game. So yeah, 921. I'm happy with that. And there's going to be a lot of moving pieces going on in this turn. So the first thing I'm going to handle is Finland. I don't want to lose Finland. I think it'll be harder for Germany to take it back if Britain decides to squash it. And I do plan on smashing Kiel to pieces this turn. Okay. There is a small percentage chance one unit might survive, but at the very least, the British will have the option of floating 3 infantry with an amphibious assault or amphibious shot from the battleship against my 2 defending infantry up here. So the attacker is going to win just over 50% of the time, and if the attacker wins, they'll have 2 pieces. So that's something of a risk. It's going to be difficult to take that back if that happens. And I kind of don't have a way to mitigate it. 2 pieces surviving is not something I really want to go head up against, since I can only bring in 2 pieces. So I'm going to float across an infantry and an artillery. Yeah, I mean, I could keep talking about that. I cut the stats on this and the options available to the British players 6 ways from Sunday. This is what I'm most comfortable with. So even if my artillery did no damage to the units floating in offshore, attacker wins now at 2%, and there's a draw and blah blah blah, and then average attacker units left is 1. So that's much simpler to handle. So that's that. The boats are going to stay put. Obviously, we can't go running into our own minefield at any benefit. At least I don't care to do that, not yet. And then, yeah, we start pushing west. So everybody moves west. These fighters move as far as they can. Silesia. These infantry in Silesia move Hanover. So there's the great move west. Okay. And we'll move here, here, here. So all my armor is going to go into Kiel. And frankly, all of the infantry purchases from Berlin, not the fighters. Fighters need to go to Ruhr. We'll discuss that in a moment. But all the infantry from Berlin go to Kiel to have immediate impact. And then it's just a matter of how much artillery we want to bring in to squash Kiel. And I want a good high percentage. It doesn't need to be 100%, but I want it like between 91 and 95 maybe. That's kind of what I'm comfortable with. So I'm just going to build that in And yes, I've already done the math, but I need to check it again. So he's got 6 pieces. We're not going to be using air. I'm going to bring in, I think, 6 artillery. Oh, why did I do that? Just a quick second. Okay, we got it back up. Calculate. If this is 963, 88. So we probably need to bring in 7 artillery. 93. Perfect. Okay. 973. So let's dial that in. 9. So we're going to split the artillery, which isn't great, but reinforce from Hanover into the Ruhr. We're going to try to hold the. Oh, whoops. Need to put a blocker. Need to put a blocker in Munich, and then we move everything that was in Hanover into the Ruhr. So I've already checked this, but it's just to demonstrate how thorough I try to be. French can bring in 6 fighters. The Germans have 7 fighters, and so it's not 100%, but 26% of the time the French can win. 72% of the time the Germans will win. So I'm just going to have to ride that. But even if it doesn't work out, it's still, the tough swing is still in the Central Powers' favor. So 32, 8, 1, 42, and 5. So I'll just run a quick 200 on this. So you can see negative 4 pieces. And actually, I don't even know if... Yeah, okay, negative 4 pieces. Whereas if the French have it, it's something like flat. Oh no, it's still negative 1 piece. So I'm comfortable with that, especially given that Kiel will be, hopefully, destroyed, and then these assets, well, even if they're not destroyed, these assets can be brought into the Ruhr if the French decide to fight there. And we've got 4 fighters coming in to clear out whatever remnants there are if the French decide to engage in the air battle and win. So we'll just next through this. Okay, this is it. The dice server is hooked up, the purchases have been made, the moves have all been made. We are ready to roll. Just barely got him. Wow. Oh my god. Okay, so I should have talked about the odds here. You know, he rolled 6 at 3, so odds are most probable outcome is that he would inflict 3 hits, so I wasn't going to take any damage because I have 3 armor. But when you roll 5 out of 6, ouch. Okay, I lose 2 infantry. That's a bit of a shock, but he still lost more material than I did, so that's good. And then we are going to flip the minefield. German. So yeah, Kiel is not going to fall. Again, for the remainder of the game, I suspect. Yeah, and that's it. And then we place and pass to the French. And you know now, 115 to 91. Actually, it's worse than that. This is counting up the IPCs, not the land territory values of the IPCs of the land territories. But anyway, look at this. 860. I'm 1,024, and he's 860. Whereas before the Russian turn, he was 1160, and I was 987. Like, oh God, that has to be a blunder. If the CP don't win this game, I'll be shocked. I almost half expect him to say that he didn't mean to do this, or he misinterpreted something, or he misread the map, in which case I'm totally fine for a go back, but I mean, he could have meant it. I mean, I don't know. The more I convince myself that maybe he has something he is thinking about by blocking Sevastopol off, not allowing the Austrians to come in, and wow, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching this. All the best from the good captain, and bye-bye.